Hello everyone, it's Andrea with Happy Cloud Creations. I'm jumping on today to talk about week 1. We started our Aloha Ripple Quilt today. Week 1 we are cutting our fabric. So if you still need the pattern is for baby, throw, or queen size. You can go get that in my Craftsy shop. I'll put the link is up in this description of the video. So download your pattern and you're set for the whole quilt along. I wrote out on mine what colors I'm using next to the cutting instructions. That kind of helps me. I don't know, maybe I should wait a couple seconds till people jump on. I don't know if people are knowing that this is on yet. So if you're jumping on, can you say hi so I can make sure I can see comments? Probably should wait a couple seconds to see if people jump on. Yeah, I'm really excited to start this quilt along with you all. I've made 2 of the Aloha Ripple quilts so far. One I gave away to my parents-in-law, and then I kept the baby one just so I could have it as a demo for this quilt along. So if you guys jump on, say hi, so I can make sure I can see comments. Hi Charlotte, yay, I can see comments. So I hope you guys are all excited to start the quilt along. If there's any questions, let me know during the video. Just let me know if you have any questions. Basically, if you haven't read the blog post, I posted a blog post this morning kind of going over a few tips about cutting. Cutting instructions, what you need for this step. I see a couple people have already started cutting out their fabrics. I started just like an hour ago cutting out my fabrics. First thing I do is once you've bought your fabric, you do the coloring sheet. If you haven't done that yet, there's a coloring sheet to kind of plan out what you're wanting your quilt to look like, right? And then after I did that, I went through on the cutting instruction page and put my orange floral, and so on. Some people will get just a plain piece of paper and write the numbers with the color that is corresponding to the pattern and cut out a little piece of their fabric and tape that straight to that piece of paper. That's a good idea. I might do that with this one too, just because when you're looking at the pattern and the pieces are red and your piece isn't red, or if you decided you want your C to be red and it's showing purple, it might get a little confusing. So try to label out your pattern to what you're going to be using. If there's any questions, let me know. Most quilters, if you're not a beginner, you already know how to cut out your fabric. The way I do it, one tip is make sure you have a sharp rotary blade. So these can get dull, they don't last forever. And so if you are having to press really hard or you're going through it once and there's pieces not getting cut, you're going to want to get a new blade because that's just putting more effort into it that you don't need to. So make sure you have a sharp blade. And if you're new to quilting, the 6 by 24 inch ruler is very helpful. And since I know if you're new, you probably don't use this big of blocks that often. If you can see this, I'm doing the throw. And we're having 6 1/4, 5.5 inch pieces. And what else? We got 5 7/8 inch pieces. So there's a lot of big pieces. Then we even got even bigger ones. So, hey Lynn. Hi Norma. Glad you guys could join. So if you're using these big pieces, you might not have a ruler that's big, right? So when I'm doing that, I use the lines on my mat, my cutting mat, with my long ruler. Hi, Carrie. Oh, I'm excited. You are joining this quilt along as well. I thought it would be fun to do this quilt with everyone. It's a little different than other quilt alongs. It's not just, you know, the same block or a sampler quilt. It's kind of an overall design. But in the end, if you do decide, because there will be like specific blocks. We got our A blocks, our B blocks, and then our flying geese blocks and our center block. So if you wanted, you could sash around each one of those if you wanted to give yours a little different look. As is right now, you know, it's the overall design, but breaking it up with sashing might look cool. I've not tried that yet. So if you guys have questions along the way, let me know, okay? In the directions, I'm not sure, you know, I say read all the instructions. That might make things a little more helpful, you know, if you actually read all the instructions. When you're cutting, I like to cut out the bigger pieces first. So, like when I'm doing this, let's see, what color is this for me? This color was B. So the 11.5 inch square, I did 11 1/4 inch by width of fabric strip. And then you have this chunk left over on the side. And then I went from there and did 2 5.5 inch by 10.5 inch rectangles on the side. So you can kind of like see there, like plan out when you're looking at your fabric what you're gonna want to cut. You want to do the bigger ones first, and then do the smaller ones around that, so that you're not doing a bunch of smaller strips and then you get to the end and you don't have enough room for these large pieces. Hello, Jana and Joanna. Very close names. So let's see, is there a trick to getting the pattern from Craftsy? Won't allow me to add it to my cart. That's weird. Rebecca, when you go to the Craftsy website, when you try to click on add cart, it doesn't go into your cart? Is that what you're trying to say? Because when you go there, there's a little button that says add to cart, and then once it's in your cart, you click continue to checkout, I think it is, or process checkout, something like that. I'm not sure what the issue you're having. Thank you about the hair, thanks. I just keep going shorter and shorter. This is a little too short. I'm used to it being a little longer. As I was saying, so do your big piece and then do smaller pieces all the way around it. And then same with this color, the purple color. You got your big purple, what's C? You got that big 11.5 inch. I did 11 1/4 inch wide strip of width of fabric, and then you have this chunk on the side, and that actually will fill exactly 2 strips of 5.5 inch. So you can do your 5.5 inch pieces there, and then you only need 2 more. Most of the fabric requirements are pretty exact. I only like to round up to the nearest third or fourth or half. But I kind of put a little buffer in there because I don't want you guys like running out of fabric either. So they're not super generous fabric amounts. So you want to make sure to measure twice and cut once. Like this morning I was in a hurry and I did a 6 1/4 inch strip, and then I did 5.5 inch, and I'm like, I should have measured that twice. So you got to measure twice and then cut once. Hello, Sandra from Arkansas. Hello, Jody from Alabama. This is your first quilt on. Cool. I'm excited for you. That's fine, though, if you're a little behind. This is actually a pretty quick and easy quilt, I would say. Once you get the flying geese and the square triangles together, it's just like putting a little puzzle together, and they go together really quickly. So if people are just joining, haven't even gotten their fabric yet, it goes together pretty quickly. Hi, Deb. Everybody's saying it's snowy and icy. I live in Washington, and it's probably 40s and rainy. I'm kind of bummed we haven't gotten very much snow. We got like 1 day of snow. Oh, Jessica, you're still waiting for your fabric to arrive? Okay, so this morning, I was cutting my fabric, and a lesson to everyone, if you buy solids, I had some of this pink in my stash, and I thought it was candy pink. And so I'm like, okay, I have a half a yard of that, and I need a yard. So I just ordered half more yard of candy pink. And then when I got it, I realized, wait a minute. Those are so close, but they're not the same. And so I looked back at my previous purchases, because I think I purchased this pink last year. This is actually bubblegum. And so they're not quite the same, so I had to order more. So I'm going to have to wait until that arrives so I can finish my cutting. I'm worried that they are so close, but I'm worried that if once I get the quilt together, it'll be noticeable, you know? So that's a bummer. -2 feels like -20, and oh my goodness, Cheryl. So I lived in Montana for 9 months, and the day we moved there, it was -30 degrees. And I'm used to Washington weather, so we were like, I don't think we like this. And so after 9 months we were there for work, and we moved back. We're like, okay, I like the mild weather here in Washington. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. I like to, you could type out and print out little labels for each. I like to just write it on a little piece of paper and pin it to it. Since these sizes are so close, 5 7/8 and 6 1/4, they're so close, you don't want to accidentally grab the wrong thing and make your half square triangles out of the 5 7/8 instead of the 6 1/4. That's one thing I do. Yeah. So I don't know. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Thank you, Mary. I'm still kind of getting used to it. My husband likes it a little longer. I think I look a lot like my brothers when it's short. So my brothers and I look a lot alike. Do I starch my fabric before cutting? No, I do not, Lanita. If you're going to pre-wash your fabric, it kind of takes the stiffness out. If you don't pre-wash your fabric, it's a little stiff still. So I don't starch it. I've never starched it before. Even when I used to pre-wash all my fabric, I never starched it. I just kind of iron all the wrinkles out with a little bit of steam, and then I cut them. And I don't know, some people like starch for a lot of things cut on the bias. Like some people might be wondering if you've looked ahead. For the half square triangles, I do 2 at a time. Some people like to do 8 at a time. And the reason I didn't do that was some of them you don't need 8. And then another, you're cutting, your edges will be on the bias. And I don't like that. I'd rather my bias be in the center of my half square triangle. And then these will be, you know, straight edged, straight grain on the edges. So look ahead before you do all your cutting. If you don't like doing flying geese how the pattern says, you might need to cut your fabric a little differently. Sorry, it's really sunny out. And so also same with the half square triangles. If you don't like to do them the way I'm doing them, you're going to have to cut accordingly. The lady on North National Quilter Circle is having her people pre-wash their fabric. Yeah, you can pre-wash your fabric if you like to. One reason I don't pre-wash my fabric is it does make it a little stiffer. The second reason I don't is once you quilt it up and wash it, I like the crinkly look. Some people prefer their quilts to look more flat, and so if you pre-wash it, and like I know she said she pre-washes her batting and dries it as well. I don't, because I like the crinkly look, and that, so it's kind of your personal preference how you're gonna like your quilt to turn out. So if you like the crinkly look, not pre-washing your fabric and not pre-washing your batting is gonna make it even more crinkly. Pre-washing it is gonna keep it more smooth looking. Yeah, I tend to pre-wash flannel. Also, I do pre-wash my fabric when I'm making placemats, because placemats, I like them to look flat. And if I use a cotton batting, that's going to shrink up a little bit, and so I want my placemats to be flatter, so I'll pre-wash my that kind of fabric. Also, if you're using a fat quarter, or if you're using any pre-cuts, you don't really want to pre-wash because it's going to shrink the size. When you pre-wash your fabric, parts of it will fray, and so you lose some of that dimension. Roberta, you like the crinkle look too? I do. It makes it more cozy, and I'm not a long armor, and I don't do fancy quilting, so I can understand that people want to show off the fancy quilting. Like if you have more intricate quilting and you want your quilt to be flatter and you can see that quilting better, I can understand pre-washing it. Yes, dinner napkins too. I can see anything that you're going to use a lot and wash a lot, you're going to want to pre-wash. And since I don't pre-wash my fabric, when I go to wash that quilt, I will throw a few color catchers in the wash machine with it. Like for the last National Quilter Circle Challenge, I designed the pattern, the Snowy Day quilt pattern, and one of my quilts it had white background, and it had a dark navy border, dark navy pieces in it, and it had red pieces in it as well. And so that was cotton and steel with some Kona white. And so I threw like 3 color catchers in it, and I was like so worried that white was going to come out pink. But I threw that in the wash, and I just have a front loader. I don't have the old-fashioned, not old-fashioned, but you know, the top loaders. I have a front loader, and I threw 3 color catchers in there, and it came out perfect. There was no bleeding. So as long as you put that color catcher in when you wash your quilt, you should be fine. You shouldn't have to worry about not pre-washing your fabric. If you're using like maybe an older fabric or a fabric of not higher quality, maybe you might have to worry more about bleeding. I know personally, like within the last couple years, I decided, I read somewhere, I think it was Mary Fons, she said, buy the best quality fabric that you can afford. So if you are trying to make an heirloom quilt, you're going to want to buy the best quality fabric you can afford. So what I do is, since I have a really small budget, basically whatever money I make from my quilty business, my crafty business, that's what I can buy fabric with. So I shop sales. I shop the Hawthorne Threads sales section, the Stash Fabric sales section. You can get Kona Fabrics at Joann Fabrics with a 50 or 60% off coupon. So do stuff like that, and then the higher quality fabric isn't going to bleed as much as a lower quality fabric. Where do I get the color catchers? You never tried them. Jessica, I've bought mine at Walmart, Target, even at the grocery store. They're right in the laundry department. It's kind of like by stain removers and fabric softeners. Like, it looks like it's a box of fabric, what's it called? Fabric softener sheets, but it's not. It says Shout Color Catcher. And those are a lifesaver. When I do pre-wash my fabric, I throw a couple of those in there with them as well. But yeah, I stopped pre-washing my fabric, I think probably last year. So like, I pulled out my daughter's swoon quilt to finish it, and I started it last year, and I'm like, oh wow, all this fabric's pre-washed. I can tell the difference. Like, this feels a little stiffer than that fabric. And so I guess it less movement, and so when you iron it, your pieces are less chance of getting wonky. Which also, somebody had asked me that too. Before next week, when you're making your flying geese blocks, when you press your pieces, your seams open, or your seams to the side, you want to press down with your iron. You don't want to iron it like you would a shirt. You just press down, and that way you have a nice crisp seam. I want to tell you that before next week, because I know people will probably start sewing before I actually have the video next week. If there's any questions, let me know, okay? Because I'm trying to think if there's anything else about cutting. Probably not. I'm excited to see everybody's. I don't think everybody's shared their fabric selections, which share a picture of your fabric selection or of it all cut up, and share one of your favorite cutting tips or a tip that you have for cutting. I know somebody was saying that they bought their fabric at a non-quilt shop type store, and the lady cut it crooked. So that's one thing about like buying your fabric at Joann Fabrics. You can get Kona cottons, and you can get nice like Cloud 9 fabric. You can get high quality fabric there, but sometimes they don't cut straight. So you might want to get 1/8 of a yard more, 1/4 a yard more than you need, because sometimes they cut crooked because they use scissors. They don't use rotary blades. Oh, that's a good tip, Cheryl. She said that she takes her fabrics and clips up a little bit and puts it in boiling water, and if there's no bleeding, then she knows that the fabric's okay to use. Oh, awesome. I never thought to do that. So yeah, post pictures of your fabric. The more engagement, the funner it is seeing everybody's stuff. I like seeing everybody's different fabrics, because then it's like it gives me ideas. Like, ooh, I've never thought of that combo together. I'd like to try that. So if nobody has any questions, next week we're doing the flying geese. So oh, sorry, I was reading Deb's question or comment. She has, it's not showing everything of your comment, but it says the fabric clerk suggested dyeing the fabric and said the background would take the color and the print would remain white. I guess that could happen if you, if it's like kind of printed paint, because sometimes I know when it's a white on white, it's like the top kind of looks like paint a little bit. So the bottom fabric would take the dye, but the little flower or whatever wouldn't. I can't read your whole statement there. It's cutting it off. One of the reasons I'm kind of lately steering away from white background is when you, like, so my background is blue for this one. When you quilt it up and you have straggling threads, you got to make sure those are tucked under, the dark ones are tucked under, so that it doesn't show through that white fabric. So that's what I've been steering away from white, but white is really pretty. Like that blue, red, and white and pink one I did last year, the Snowy Day Quilt Sampler. I just, I was really careful about tucking those in. I've never dyed fabric except for I tie-dyed some shirts. And so I'm not really, Deb, I'm not really like in the know of dyeing fabric. I would look it up, like Google it and see what it says. Is there any more questions? I'm really excited to get going. I know, I was waiting and waiting to cut my fabric and like, well, I can cut it. You guys probably don't need me to show you how to cut it, and I don't really have a good setup. When you are cutting it, though, most people, if you're not new, you want to make sure you square up the fabric. So I didn't cut my pink one, just so you could see. So you're going to want to hold it up here and make sure this bottom salvage to salvage is lined up. And if you see, my edge isn't completely straight now because I lined the salvages up. So you'll lay that down, and you'll want to square up your side before you start cutting your side. And bigger pieces, and then the smaller pieces around your bigger pieces. So you're gonna try to dye the white fabric blue. Maybe like cut a little bit off and dye it, and then wash it and see how it turns out. Yeah, like Cheryl just said, that a 2x2 piece of fabric, maybe dye just a little bit, and then wash it and see if it stays color fast and it's the way you want it to look. That's kind of interesting. I think I would like to dye fabric. yeah, so next week we want to have a marking tool, either a disappearing ink pen, what is this, a hair marker. We'll just leave an indent in your fabric. If you see, just leaves a little indent so you don't have to worry about any ink not washing out. Or you could use a chalk pencil. Yeah, Deb, I would test it out. Let us know. Let us know. Post a post in the group because I'd like to know how that turns out. So next week, I'm excited. Flying geese. So each week we're going to do a step together. So if you are working ahead, as a courtesy to the whole group, try to post progress pictures. Take progress pictures and save them for the current week so that people don't get confused and say, oh, are we already at that step? So next week, post your pictures of your flying geese. The following week, we're doing the half square triangles. And then the following week, we start making blocks. So I'm really excited. Jody, the second one is a hair marker, which it just kind of, I got this on Amazon for like $4.50, but recently I saw Joann Fabrics has them, and I'm sure your local quilting store. I usually use this for when I'm quilting my quilt, and I'll make lines where I want to quilt it, but I tried it on piecing, and on darker fabrics, you can see it better than, I can't see this purple on darker fabrics, but I can see this line. Would pre-cuts work for this pattern? Lanita, one, it depends on what size you're making. As you can see, a lot of these pieces are a lot bigger than a pre-cut. If you're using, let's see, the baby size, you might be able to get away with using some fat quarters, except for color A and color B and color C you need half yard of each of those. So you could always probably maybe do 2 fat quarters of the same fabric. I just went with yardage. I really do need to design some patterns that are geared toward pre-cuts. I don't know, do you guys do a lot of pre-cuts? I'm a yardage gal. One reason I do yardage is it's cheaper. If I were to buy a 1/4 yard of fabric compared to 1 fat quarter, it's going to be way cheaper to buy that 1/4 yard of fabric than the fat quarter. But if you the other sizes, you'd need several fat quarters, per color. Unless you went just totally scrappy. Oh, I wonder if anyone's going to do that, keep the background color one color, and then all the triangles and everything be really scrappy. That would be cool. Yes, this is a Clover product. I dropped mine on my tile floor, so this pointy edge is broken off. But yes, it is made by Clover, and it's awesome. So since I started using this for my quilting, it has made my lines way straighter than when I was just using the guide on my walking foot. Your curved end of the tool works great on turning circles inside out and pressing the seam as you turn that. Ooh, I've never made circles or curved pieces yet, Cheryl. I'll have to try that. I know there's a really cute pattern by Susie Quilts. She has these watermelons and it's curves, and I really want to try that. So this helps turning those inside out. I know, it's a really nifty tool. I'm glad I bought it. It was only $4.50. I'm like, this is awesome, and it's super cheap. So, Sandra, you use a lot of jelly rolls and layer cakes. Always buy on sale and clearance. Yes, I always buy on sale. I did buy a couple packs of fat quarters on sale, but the thing about jelly rolls, a lot of my patterns don't have that small of pieces. I tend to go for at least 3.5 or larger. So maybe I'll try to do some with some smaller pieces, some 2.5 inch pieces. Those kind of scare me, but they don't scare me. It's just, it feels like it will take a long time to finish, especially when I only get a quilt 1 to 2 hours a night. Hand turning appliques. Oh, that's a good idea for this too. I've never done that. I did hand applique, but I actually did machine applique, not hand applique. Turned machine applique. So if you guys, I don't know, do you guys have any more questions for me? I'm really excited. This is going to be a lot of fun. Today feels like a Monday because we had yesterday off, so still got to go to the grocery store and stuff. So once it's done, I got to get back to being an adult, huh? You like the jelly rolls too, Jessica? Yeah, I have a couple jelly rolls. I have one jelly roll and then a jelly roll pack I was gifted, and I still haven't used them. I need to use them. I need to find something. I was thinking maybe placemats. That would be an easy project for that small of a strip. When it comes to quilts, I like to do bigger pieces so they go together quickly. Like if you notice, I have a couple other patterns, like the Snowy Day Quilt Sampler. The smallest piece in that is like 4.5. Or I guess there's some 2.5 inch strips in that, but most of them are 4.5. Yeah. Okay. So, any more questions? Are we good for this week? And then I will jump on here next week. I think maybe Tuesday would work best since that's the day that the step is released in the blog, and then the newsletter. It all goes out. I have a weekly newsletter. I'm trying to stick to once a week or less. That kind of just tells you, hey, the blog is up. Go check it out. I can put the link to the signing up, or even if you go to my blog, it has a pop-up that says, hey, you want to sign up for her newsletter? So I do that once a week. And so next Tuesday, the blog will come out, and then we can start posting pictures of our flying geese. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. I promise I will not work ahead. maybe Monday night. We'll see. We'll see. I won't post anything till Tuesday. So I will see you guys all next Tuesday. If you ever have any question, you can post it in the group and tag me, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. My little phone gives me a notification when someone posts anything in the group. So I will talk to you guys next Tuesday, and have fun cutting all your fabric. I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.